The Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration Drug and Alcohol Clearinghouse. The Clearinghouse is a secure online database that provides real-time information about drug and alcohol violations as it relates to CDL and CDL learner permit drivers. The information is provided for employers, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, state drivers licensing agencies, and state law enforcement personnel. The Clearinghouse enables employers to identify drivers who commit a drug and alcohol program violation while working for one employer, but who fail to inform another employer as required by current regulations. The Clearinghouse provides the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration and employers the necessary tools to identify drivers who are prohibited from operating a commercial motor vehicle based on the U.S. Department of Transportation's drug and alcohol program violations, and ensure that such drivers receive the required evaluation and treatment before operating a commercial vehicle on public roads. The Clearinghouse rule requires the FMCSA regulated employers, medical review officers, substance abuse professionals, consortium and third-party administrators, and other service agents to report to the Clearinghouse information related to violations of the drug and alcohol regulations in 49 CFR Part 40 and 382 by current and prospective employees. Employers are required to query the Clearinghouse for current and prospective employees' drug and alcohol violations before permitting those employees to operate a commercial vehicle on public roads. Employers are required to annually query the Clearinghouse for each driver they currently employ. Here are some of the questions many employers and drivers have been asking. What information is in the Clearinghouse? The Clearinghouse contains records of violations of drug and alcohol prohibitions in 49 CFR Part 382 Subpart B, including positive drug or alcohol test results and test refusals. When a driver completes the return to duty process and follow-up testing plan, this information is also recorded in the Clearinghouse. How will state driver license agencies use the Clearinghouse? State driver license agencies will be able to query the Clearinghouse prior to completing licensing transactions, such as the issuance, renewal, transfer, and upgrade of a commercial driver's license. The Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration has extended the compliance date for the requirement established by the Clearinghouse final rule that states query the Clearinghouse before completing certain CDL transactions. The mandated compliance with this requirement, currently due to begin in January of 2020, is delayed until January 6, 2023. State agencies currently have the option to voluntarily query the Clearinghouse. May drivers access their own information in the Clearinghouse? Yes, once a driver has registered in the Clearinghouse, he or she will be able to access his or her Clearinghouse record electronically at no cost. This record would include any drug and alcohol program violation information available in the Clearinghouse, along with the status of their return to duty process, if applicable. Who is a Clearinghouse administrator? An individual with an employer or consortium third-party administrator who can manage users on behalf of their company. Credentialed medical review officers, or MROs, and substance abuse professionals, SAPs, are also considered Clearinghouse administrators and can invite Clearinghouse assistance. How are substance abuse professionals required to use the Clearinghouse? SAPs must use the Clearinghouse to report specific information about a CDL driver's return to duty activities. This information includes the date of completion of the initial SAP assessment and the date the SAP determines that the driver is eligible for return to duty drug testing per 382.705D. Should violations that occurred before the Clearinghouse implementation date be reported to the Clearinghouse? No. The Clearinghouse contains only violations that occurred on or after January the 6th, 2020. If a driver's violation occurred prior to January 6, 2020, and was in the return to duty process when the Clearinghouse was implemented, the violation and any related return to duty activity will not be entered into the Clearinghouse. Who is authorized to use the Clearinghouse? Authorized users include CDL drivers, employers, this includes motor carriers and other employers of drivers operating commercial motor vehicles that require a commercial driver's license or commercial learner's permit, consortium or third-party administrators, medical review officers, substance abuse professionals, and enforcement personnel. How is a driver's data protected in the Clearinghouse? The Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration takes the protection of personal information very seriously. The Clearinghouse will meet all relevant federal security standards, and the FMCSA will verify the effectiveness of the security protections on a regular basis. Clearinghouse information is not available to the public. Only authorized users are able to register and access the Clearinghouse for designated purposes. The Clearinghouse requires authentication via a login.gov username and password to access records. Login.gov, a shared service which offers secure online access to participating government systems, also requires the completion of a user verification process to ensure the proper person is using those credentials. Drivers registered in the Clearinghouse can access their Clearinghouse records at any time and at no cost to them. Drivers may only access their own information, not information about other drivers. The FMCSA will only share detailed drug and alcohol violation information with a prospective or current employer and or their designated consortium third-party administrator when an employer or designated CTPA has requested and receives specific consent from the driver. Drivers will be able to see the information that would be released to an employer before consenting to the release. And drivers' information will only be used by the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration and other enforcement agencies as required to enforce drug and alcohol testing regulations. What actions can CDL drivers take in the Clearinghouse? Drivers may view their own driver record electronically, provide electronic consent to release detailed drug and alcohol program violation information to a current or prospective employer, and identify a substance abuse professional so the SAP may enter specific information regarding the driver's return to duty activities. To complete the actions outlined above, drivers must be registered in the Clearinghouse. Registered drivers will have their Clearinghouse accounts and contact preferences set up, allowing them to quickly respond to query requests from employers. How will CDL drivers be notified when information about them is added to the Clearinghouse? The Clearinghouse will notify the driver using the method indicated during the driver's Clearinghouse registration, either mail or email, anytime information about the driver is added, revised, or removed. If the driver has not yet registered for the Clearinghouse, these notifications will be sent by mail using the address associated with the driver's commercial driver's license. Can a driver correct information recorded about him or her in the Clearinghouse? Yes. The final rule provides a petition process for drivers to request corrections to their Clearinghouse record. Drivers may challenge only the accuracy of information reported, not the accuracy or validity of test results or refusals. How long will CDL driver violation records be available for release to employers from the Clearinghouse? Driver violation records will be available in the Clearinghouse for 5 years from the date of the violation determination, or until the violation is resolved through the successful completion of the return to duty process and follow-up testing plan, whichever is later. So why do we have the Clearinghouse, and why now? CDL drivers, the operators of the largest, heaviest, most powerful, and dangerous vehicles, need to be alert and at their best at all times while driving. Drivers that use drugs or alcohol are a grave danger to the public and themselves. Here is an example why we now have the Clearinghouse. John Trucker, a CDL driver for ABC Trucking Company, tested positive for drugs from the results of a recent random drug test. ABC Trucking explains to John that regulations require them to remove him from driving a vehicle that requires a CDL. He is told he is disqualified from driving any CDL vehicle until he meets with a substance abuse professional and completes the steps necessary to requalify. ABC Trucking tells John that their substance abuse policy also requires for him to be fired for this violation. John leaves ABC Trucking, and his name is added to the Clearinghouse as an unqualified driver by the Drug Testing Facility, MRO. John is mad and needs a job. He ignores the information about meeting with an SAP, waits a few weeks, and applies for a driving job at XYZ Trucking Company. John passes his pre-employment drug test. Without the Clearinghouse, XYZ Trucking would now not know that they are about to hire an unqualified driver. With the Clearinghouse in place, XYZ Trucking avoids hiring an unqualified driver, breaking the regulations, and creating a huge liability for the company. But what about John? John can straighten this out, but he needs to follow the rules. He cannot be hired for another CDL job or renew his license until he meets with a substance abuse professional, be evaluated, and completes the SAP's recommendations. He must then present his completed SAP paperwork to any new prospective employer. John's prospective new employer must verify or require the negative results of a return-to-duty drug test and assure he is enrolled in a proper follow-up testing program. Once verified, the new employer is then required to update the Clearinghouse in order for John's status to be changed to qualified. Although now qualified, the Clearinghouse will maintain the information on John's violation for 5 years from the end of the completion of his follow-up program.